Hello and welcome to CBN News Brief. My name is Nguge. Here is what we have lined up for you. Thousands of residents along the riverine areas of rivers Shabelle and Juba are at risk of flooding as the two rivers are about to breach their banks, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization. In its regular update this week, the United Nations agency warned of flash floods in Badere, Dolo, Lug, and Bu-Ale districts in Gedo and Middle Juba regions and Beledweyne in Hiran region. The update noted that as of 22nd October, the river level at Beledweyne is at 7.8 meters, which is about half a meter short of the full bank level, adding that overbank spillages from minor streams passing through Beledweyne town have caused flooding, leading to displacements of a significant number of households. According to the report, there has been flooding in the Ethiopian highlands about 20 kilometers north of Beledweyne, and this is expected to reach Somalia in the coming days should the rains continue. In Gedo region, the report notes that 4 people have lost their lives in Badere and a further 750 households displaced. The floods have also destroyed 1,200 farms and drowned 250 livestock. In Bay and Bokol regions, flash floods destroyed crops such as sorghum, maize and cowpeas that were at the seedling stage. Low-lying areas of Gedo were also affected by the flash floods over the last 1 week. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs on Monday called for emergency relief efforts to avert sufferings as the floods sweep through Gedo and Hiran regions. According to a statement, the government said 12,000 households had self-evacuated as the rains continue to pound the affected regions. According to the update by the Food and Agriculture Organization, rainfall will be modest in the coming weeks in Juba, Shabelle, Bay and Bokol regions, but flooding will continue. Somalia's President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo has been accused of sleeping in the Russia-Africa Forum summit that concluded on Thursday. A photo of the president with his eyes closed is being circulated by critics of President Farmajo. It is difficult to tell from the photo whether the president had actually dozed off or was just momentarily closing his eyes. President Farmajo was not the only African leader on fire for allegedly dozing off at the events of the Russian organized conference. The president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and Uganda's long-serving President Yoweri Museveni were both spotted seeming to be asleep. Ramaphosa was accused of sleeping on the job, especially when he was supposed to handle sensitive state matters. When in Russia, pay attention, says the message here. Somalia's upper house passed the National Revenue Bill, paving way for presidential assent after its earlier approval by the lower house. Out of the 54 Senate members, 31 members voted in favor of the bill. The bill seeks to entrench revenue collection into law and update previous legal frameworks guiding revenue collection and utilization. It also seeks to streamline revenue collection and create an effective mechanism through which the government can extend tax collection beyond the capital Mogadishu. Revenue mobilization remains an integral part of the economic recovery process and financing of the budget. Last year's attempt by the Ministry of Finance to impose tax collection within Mogadishu ran into headwinds, with lawmakers questioning the rationale since the only existing laws dating back to 1962 did not provide sufficient legal guidelines on the exercise. Finance Minister Abdirahman Beile, who was present at the Senate during the passage of the bill, has applauded both houses for passing the bill, noting that it was a significant step in the debt relief process. The bill will now be presented to the President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo for assent. At least 16 people have been killed in violence in Ethiopia this week that began with protests against Prime Minister and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Abiy Ahmed. This has been revealed in an Amnesty International report that was delivered on Friday. According to the Amnesty International report, the violence had included instances of security forces opening fire on the protesters, but was increasingly taking the form of ethnic and religious clashes. The violence erupted in Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia, and in much of Ethiopia's Oromia region after a high-profile activist was accused by security forces of trying to orchestrate an attack against him. The activist, Jawar Mohammed, is a former Abiy ally and member of the Prime Minister's Oromo ethnic group. Recently, he has become critical of some of Abiy's policies. The unrest highlights divisions within the ethnic Oromo support base that swept Abiy to power last year, divisions that could undermine his position ahead of elections planned for May 2020. At a press conference on Thursday, Jawar called for calm while accusing the authorities of stoking instability. At least 6 people were killed in the town of Ambo, west of Addis Ababa, after security forces opened fire on protesters, Fiseha said. Ethnic and religious violence has been reported in the towns and cities of Dodola, Harar, Balerobe, and Adama. Ethiopian officials have provided scant information on casualties, but did not confirm 2 deaths in Adama earlier this week. 2 accused Somali pirates were arrested in Brooklyn on Wednesday on terrorism charges, alleging that they kidnapped and held a United States citizen hostage between January 2012 and September 2014. Mohammed Tahlil Mohammed and Abdi Yusuf Hassan are being held without any bail. In an October 9th overruling indictment, prosecutors added firearms charges as well as hostage-taking conspiracy and threatening a U.S. national with a deadly weapon. The charging papers do not name the hostage, but California-based journalist Michael Scott Moore confirmed to the New York Times that he was the victim when the first indictment in the case against Tahlil came down in 2018. Moore was kidnapped on January 21, 2012 in Galkayo, Somalia, and released on September 22, 2014. He wrote a book about his captivity called The Desert and the Sea, 977 Days Captive on the Somali Pirate Coast, in which he described Tahlil as the boss of his captors, according to the Times. Moore said that his mother negotiated a $1.6 million ransom payment to gain his freedom, down from $20 million that the pirates had initially demanded. The count for hostage-taking conspiracy says the defendants threatened to kill, injure and hold him hostage until a third person and governmental entity paid in US dollars for his release. Moore is a US and German citizen, matching the indictment's description of the hostage as a dual citizen. Sudan and South Sudan have made significant progress towards resolving their border dispute following talks in the Sudanese capital Khartoum, with only 5 areas now subject to further negotiations. According to the United Nations, the progress made at this week's talks has brought the 2 countries closer than they have ever been before to reaching sustainable peace. The meeting was focused on the disputed arid, oil-rich border territory of Abyei, where the UN Interim Security Force UNISFA has helped to monitor an uneasy peace without formal governance and protect civilians since 2011, in the weeks before South Sudan became independent from its northern neighbor. Boundary lines for the ethically split rectangle of territory have not been agreed between the 2 nations, but both sides agreed to allow UNISFA's neutral presence when intercommunal fighting erupted in the year 2011 to help foster a more secure environment until a final agreement can be reached. The United Nations Chief of Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, said there had been a continued partnership between the 2, notwithstanding the recent change of government in Khartoum following the overthrow of dictator Omar al-Bashir, presenting a unique opportunity to move the political process forward on the border issues. Lacroix added that Sudan and South Sudan need to resume direct talks immediately to resolve outstanding provisions of the agreements in relation to the final status of Abyei. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has recommended that the role of UNISFA to engage in local mediation, provide political support for dialogue between the two parties, and fulfill protection-related tasks should be strengthened. Well, we've come to the end of CBN News Brief. Join Abdullahi Hassan tonight with more and detailed news coverage.